I want to bring in the CEO of Dynamic Money, Chris Burns, to talk more about the market amid this turmoil. Hi, Chris. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me again.
Many may be questioning why Wall Street is continuing this rally that we've seen over the past 3 days amid this unrest all across the country. What are investors focusing on instead of those riots?
It's not even as much necessarily about individual investors as about those larger institutional investors feeling confident. And as maybe harsh as this seems to say, they're not primarily concerned with what they would see as a short-term issue. Even though there will be definite economic impact in the areas affected, realistically, long-term, they're looking at, is the government going to keep providing stimulus to keep the worst from happening economically? And that's more really about COVID than about the protests in general. So it's confusing for a lot of folks to see so much unrest and the market seemingly oblivious to that. But again, the markets are viewing this more as a short-term reality, not as something they're going to see extended for many months.
Investors, like you mentioned, are of course focused on that economic recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. Some good news coming from a lot of retailers recently. Abercrombie & Fitch, American Eagle saying they've seen a surge in sales as stores do begin to reopen, kind of giving legitimacy to claims that we would have, pent-up demand as we do come out of this economic shutdown. What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting. And honestly, this is where I see the protests having the most impact, is that basically inadvertently having thousands of law enforcement and protesters on the streets is basically a massive test of where we actually are at with COVID. And so I think what we're going to see is, if we come out of this and there's a huge spike in the virus and we have to move back towards stricter restrictions, that's going to be another massive blow to the economy. But on the flip side, if we come out of this and we don't see that massive change, I think Americans in general are going to say, wait a minute, we've had thousands of people on the streets, and if we're still okay, that means maybe I'm okay getting out. So if anything, that's really going to speed up that economic recovery we keep talking about. Now, we can't really know that yet because of the incubation period of the virus, but I think in the next few weeks, we're going to really start seeing what is the impact of this, and that could truly change the economic direction that we're moving in.
The looting seen in recent riots is now threatening to further hurt businesses that were already suffering under the financial burden of the coronavirus pandemic, also pressuring local economies even further. What do you expect to be the impact of that?
Yeah, if you look historically, it has significant impact in the area of the looting. And again, the uniqueness of this particular reality, the protests we're in now versus, say, the Rodney King protest, which were about 6 days, we're already on day 9 of that. And so we don't really know the full extent because we haven't had anything like this in so long. But usually it's a lot like a natural disaster. It has a significant impact in the areas where you see looting, but not really an overall economic downturn because of it. Again, the hard part about this, the sad part, is it's mostly small businesses that are disproportionately impacted by this kind of thing, and they're already the ones that were disproportionately impacted from COVID. And so they're basically small business owners right now that might have been just hanging on, just trying to make it. It's a big blow when you see us just moving into coming back. And I live in Georgia, where we'd opened up a lot of things, and so finally people are feeling like, okay, we made it, maybe we can get our business back on track. And then suddenly consumers are scared to be out, et cetera. So you're seeing a downturn there. So again, I don't think we're going to see a macroeconomic huge push because of the looting specifically. But for small business owners, this is not a win.
All right, Chris Burns, the CEO of Dynamic Money, joining us to discuss the current rally on Wall Street and the financial impact of riots and looting on businesses. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, Chris.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.